So now that we're done putting together our build for our Lego character, the next thing we're gonna get it ready for is to customize it visually, so we can start putting on our textures. And before we do that, we have to do what's called UV mapping. So UV mapping is a really critical component of any kind of texturing. If you remember, when we started off, we are going to start off with the Lego head. When we started off building this, we started off building it from in just a regular cylinder. So I'm gonna kind of demo what how a map works. Some of you folks may already be familiar with this already, and to do so, I'm going to create another cylinder on the side. You do not have to do this. This is just more for demo purposes. I'm going into my settings for the cylinder just to check on it and make sure that it has similar settings to how we started off with. So if you remember, I think the height divisions were 4, and then cap divisions for sure were 2. So I'm going to go ahead and drop off a cylinder and kind of put this side by side with the head. So the edited model. All right, so again, remember this, we ended up turning into this. The other thing I'm going to have you do, and you can grab this file, so it's either in the description for this video, or it's in your, or it's downloadable from the assignment itself. But if you can go ahead and download the following document. It is called UV map image. So this is the one that you're looking for. It kind of this is basically what the texture looks like. If you notice, it's very loud colors, distinctive numbers. The main reason why it's set up like this is so that when you drop off a texture, you can tell if things are proportionate or not, and also whether things are repeating themselves inaccurately. All right. Now, once you do get this texture, my suggestion is you're going to be putting it um, into your Maya source images folder. So the location for that on a Mac is going to be as follows. If you can go into Documents, we're then going to go into, and let me change my view up so I have my columns set up instead. Okay, it's going to be Documents, Maya, Projects. Depending on what you named your project, make sure you go to that. I'm just kind of doing a default one, so I didn't really set mine up very well. And I'm just going to put on source images. So this is a little bit generic again compared to if you set up your project, just because like this is more for a general tutorial. So I know everybody might have like a different setup. Once you do find your source images, however, if you can go ahead and click and drag and drop it off in here. If you notice, I've already kind of done that. Source images, of course, is really helpful to drop off any textures and images in here, because that's where Maya automatically looks for any materials or any images that you want to like kind of apply to your models. All right. Okay, so now that it's in my source images, I'm going to go ahead and apply this material. So I do have this cylinder. I'll call this the demo cylinder. I'll probably end up deleting this afterwards. And I'm going to right click, assign a new material. And for the material, I'm going to go ahead and choose the Lambert. I don't need anything fancy for this. For the Lambert name, I'm going to be calling this UV mapping material. Okay, so UV mapping material, hitting return. I'm also going to go to my color field, and I'm going to click on the checkerboard box next within that field, go to File, and within this particular window, I'm going to make sure I'm in my File tab, of course, click on Image Name. So I'm going to click on the folder next to Image Name right over here. That'll give me my options as far as the images I can put in here, and it looks like I only have that one in my source images. Remember, again, this is where it'll default to usually when you try to add an image. I'm going to select it, click on open, and then this texture is now on the cylinder. It may not look like it. So it may not look like it. I'm going to close this up real quick. It may not look like it, but if you notice that the texture is not showing, just go ahead and press 6. So go ahead and press 6, and then the texture should show up pretty well on there. All right, now if you take a look at this texture right now, you'll notice that like we know what the original image should look like, right? So if we take a look at the map over here, okay, we know the proportions, and we know that each of these colors should be in like a nice little square. Okay, and if we take a look at the top, yeah, that'll match up. If we look at the bottom, that matches up really well as well. However, if we take a look down the center, okay, it's super stretched, yeah. So we're gonna kind of clean that up a little bit. Here's what it looks like in your UV editor, and I suggest you folks have this available. I'm gonna do this again for the Lego head, but we are gonna eventually be going into Windows, modeling editors, and UV editor. Yeah, and UV editor kind of lays out any 3D textures and it puts it in a it kind of puts it in a 2D form. Yes, it kind of flattens everything out. Okay, so I'm gonna right click on this guy, put it into UV. It's gonna be kind of hard to see because unfortunately because it's really colorful. But if you notice, if I click drag around here, okay, here's our cap at the top. Yeah, so if you notice that one makes sense. This one, here's our cap, I believe, at the bottom. So let's take a look. Yeah, that's definitely our cap at the bottom. Okay, and then this area right over here, this is just our central, um, that's our central faces. Yeah, our central faces. Yeah. Now, one thing that is happening over here is we want to make sure that the map matches up. So again, everything stretched in the X direction. I'm going to clean that up. So I'm going to go into my face mode. I'll jump to my front view just to make things a little bit easier to see. I'm going to change this to shading and take off the X-ray because we already created our model. In fact, we could probably hide our front view and our side views. But I'm going to go into face mode and I'm just going to select these middle four rows. Yeah, so click and drag outside all the way to the side. You'll see it kind of show up right over here as well. Yeah, that I have all of those faces. Now, right off the bat, you probably notice these individual faces look much longer than these individual faces. Yeah, and you'll see which ones like kind of match up. In UV mapping, we want to do our best to make sure that the proportions match up. Yeah. Okay, I'm also going to press 6 on here just so I can kind of see this texture on in this view as well. All right, okay, so now that we have our texture, the next thing we got to do is we got to do our map. So I'm going to jump to my um, perspective view. Okay, we are going to be creating a cylindrical map. Yeah, so this is going into UV. We're going to click on the cylindrical option. So I'm going to go ahead and click on that. So again, UV cylindrical. What you notice is this created like a little, almost like a soup can kind of effect. Yeah, so if you notice from here to here, it kind of gives us our label. Okay, I'm also gonna close this up. Yeah, so I'm gonna close this up. If you notice, there's these little red rectangles on either side. Yeah, we want to make sure that these close at the back. Yeah, so I'm gonna click and drag this, and I'm gonna have them meet at the back. Yeah, so you see how like it kind of closes to over here. Yeah, so again, started off kind of like over here. Just click on it, drag it to the back. Yeah, so we're gonna close that up. Okay, and then we can kind of take a look at it in our um, UV editor. Okay, you'll notice I can kind of use the move tool to move this out. So I'm gonna move this out right over here. This is what it looks like right now. Okay, and as you notice when I did that, it kind of restretched again. We're gonna make sure that this map matches up with the numbers. So there's kind of an inverse relationship going on. I'm gonna go into scale. Yeah, scale tool over here. So go ahead and press the R key. Yeah, so go ahead and press it R. Okay, and then using in the UV editor, I'm gonna click and drag in the Y direction, and I'm just gonna keep doing this, keep doing this, keep doing this until I have my numbers looking proportional, and also that the colored squares, yeah, are actually squares and not like rectangular. Okay, so if you can kind of scale that, all right, and then this is actually your layout. Yeah, so if you notice, it is a little bit more extended. Yeah, you can also kind of take a look and try to match the proportions as much as possible. So I'm gonna kind of actually bring these up a little bit. Yeah, just so that they're about the same size square. It's good to kind of keep it approximately the same size. Yeah, as all the way around. That way, like you don't have certain portions that are like higher resolution versus others which might look like they're lower resolution. Yeah. All right. Okay, and so that's basically our map for a cylinder over here. This is how we would probably end up doing our layout. Is I would right click, go into UV mode, and then just kind of selecting these caps. Yeah. So I'm catching the top cap and the bottom cap. I'm then gonna scale these down just a bit. In fact, I'm gonna scale all of these. So I'm gonna shift and drag and catch soup label as well in the UV editor, and then I'm just gonna scale these down. And the reason why I'm scaling these down is, oh sorry, I'm using the wrong cube. But the reason why I'm scaling these down over here is to make sure that they can all fit within this one square. Yeah. So any map, whenever you're doing a UV map, you want to make sure that these guys are not outside of this one specific square. What happens when you're doing texturing is as you go along, if you have anything like that's kind of even drooping over to the side, this area right here will correspond with this area right over here. So you can kind of imagine this image just sort of gets tiled all the way over. Yeah, so you'll have one, and then this image right over here, it would restart over here at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and then it would go, and then once it reaches the next square, same thing again. Yeah, so that has like a tiling effect. Usually not ideal. Yeah, it's a little bit harder to work with, and especially like when you bring this like into Photoshop or something to actually make your textures. So we're gonna keep it nicely in here. All right, and so that's our layout for our cylinder. Okay, now if you remember what this looked like, yeah, we're going to now try to apply that to our Lego head, which is going to be slightly more complicated, right? Because we have a few more sections on here. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and right click on here, get into object mode for the head portion. I am going to do the same thing that I did with the cylinder, which is apply that material. So if you can right click, assign existing material. Okay, and then we're going to go and find that UV mapping material that we nicely named earlier. Okay, drop it off on there. And right off the bat, you'll probably notice that, oh, okay, there's a lot of stretching going on all over the place. Probably the only places that really make sense are going to be at the top, and although not visible, at the bottom of the neck. Yeah, so those are pretty much the only areas. Everything else is stretched and odd. Yeah, so we're definitely gonna have to fix that up. All right, so the main thing, yeah, so the main thing that we have to do for this Lego character is make sure that the face is going to make sense. Yeah, right now, if we were to bring this into Photoshop and put a design, we'll have to do a lot of guesswork because of all this stretching that's going on. Yeah, so let's make sure that the layout is nice and clean, makes this easier for us to texture. Yeah, so I'm going to first of all go into face mode, and I'm going to select all of the faces that make up the this middle portion. Yeah, so I'm going to kind of click and drag. I think I over selected at the top. Yeah, so I'm actually going to do a little bit lower. Okay, and catch all of these. Yeah, you may not catch it all at the first time. Yeah, but I'm basically trying to get everything here. Okay, and then leaving alone this top area, and also we can probably work with this area afterwards as well. Yeah, but I'm just trying to get that area, those areas set up. um, and you know what, actually what I'm gonna do here, yeah, we'll kind of roll with that. Okay, so that's gonna be like for the head portion. Okay, if you remember, again, it is important to make sure that this is mapped out nicely. Okay, now there is gonna be yeah, we can probably end up just quickly mapping this. So now that you have all of these selected, what we're going to do is go into your UV mode. I'm going to go ahead and do a cylindrical map, yeah, and drop that off. You can kind of see it. I'm leaving this open in the UV editor just so you can kind of see the effect of it. Okay, and just like with the cylinder, we're going to take our red rectangles on the sides, and we're going to have them meet together. Yeah, so they're meeting in the back. Okay, and then as you're doing that, your numbers are going to stretch, but it is important that we have this this cylindrical map go all the way to reaching the back area. In your UV editor, you can then slide this out. Yeah, so we're going to kind of slide this out so it's a little bit easier to see. Okay, now once again, we have our stretching action, yeah, in the X direction. We do want it to look a lot more we want these proportions to kind of match up a lot more. So I'm going to right click on here, go into UV shell. I am then going to select all these UVs that make up right click, go into UV, and then we're going to select all of these UVs. Yeah, so these are all the UVs that make up this face. Again, it's a lot more complicated. Yeah, but also kind of the same concept as the regular cylinder. Okay, and then again, remember, this has an inverse relationship. So if I were to scale in the UV editor down, it will actually expand uh, taller in our perspective view. Yeah, so if you can kind of scale it, and again, we're looking for those squares. Yeah, that's the main thing we're trying to get, is turn these into some nice little clean squares. Yeah, so maybe around, let's see, I'm thinking right about here looks pretty good. Yeah, again, we're trying to avoid any stretching. Yeah, so avoid any stretching on here. All right, and then that's gonna be the face. I'm gonna leave this outside for a little while, and kind of continue with the other pieces. Yeah, so we do have a few more ones that we wanna probably map out. So that's gonna be up here. Yeah, I'm going to take a map, and we're going to do a quick map for the top of the head, so we can catch something like this area right over here. Sorry, I right clicked and went into face mode. Yeah, so I did right click and go into face mode on here, and I'm just trying to catch that top cap. Notice I'm not trying to catch the faces at the exact top. Yeah, sorry, I'm just trying to get the middle ones over here. Okay, once you do have all of those faces selected, we're going to do the same thing. UV cylindrical map. Okay, close this up at the back. Okay, move this out. This one I'm going to slide even further to the side in the UV editor. You see it kind of do this, like have some action going on in the perspective view as well. And we know what this should look like, right? Again, based off of our texture. So let's right click, go into UV mode. I'm going to select all of these UVs. Yeah, so click and drag. Then I'm going to scale, and kind of scale downwards, so that in the perspective view, it scales upwards. And we're trying to get this into our boxes. A little bit hard for me to tell whether that's working or not, so I'm going to use my W key to get into move tool, and in the UV editor kind of slide it around, and I want to kind of centralize these numbers over here. I'm actually going to also scale this larger in the UV editor, so that they shrink in our perspective view. Yeah, and I'm just trying to get it to a proportion where I can see if it's square enough or not. Yeah, and I'm actually pretty good, pretty happy with that. All right, so that's gonna be the top area, and then I'm gonna kind of drop this off. So I'm putting these like almost in like visual order. Yeah, as far as this goes. Now this part you're probably not gonna have to texture very much at all, but we'll see. We'll see how it turns out. Yeah, it kind of depends on what your Lego character design looks like. Yeah, you may have something going on up there. I'm also going to scale this down. Okay, and you notice as I'm scaling this down, I'm just trying to, again, maintain proportions between the different sections. Yeah, so I have to kind of gauge it a little bit. Looks like I can get this one maybe about to here. And yeah, that should match up pretty well with what's going on the bottom one. So maybe about to there, yeah. And this will be the top area, yeah. And then I'll drop this off here about. Okay, same thing again with this bottom neck portion. Yeah, and I'm gonna kind of speed things up a little bit. Yeah, so you guys kind of get the gist of it. Yeah, but again, face mode. I am gonna jump to X-ray so I can kind of see into the neck. This part's not very critical. Again, like it's we're just doing this like to get some good practice in. But like as far as the mapping goes, that area you're probably not gonna have to spend too much time like doing coloring. Yeah, but again, very good practice. You never know. Okay, so I'm gonna close this up at the back. Okay, again, it's gonna really want to stay in that square form. We're gonna kind of fight it a bit. Right click, UV, select all these UVs, scale it. Yeah, so again, we're gonna scale downwards so that that turns more squarish. Really hard for me to tell what's going on, so I'm gonna scale this really large. Yeah, bring this down here so I can like put the numbers in the center. Okay, and then I'm just gonna scale this until I got my square. So that looks pretty good right there. Okay, and then after I get that proportion, it's all about making sure that the look is nice. Yeah, so we have the squares about the same proportion. So I'm gonna kind of scale that down until that looks about right. Then once again, kind of drop those off. Yeah, so yeah, that'll work out pretty well right there. Okay, you may notice too, like it's not exactly centered right now. You can actually get things centered, yeah, if you move these around. But for our purposes, I'm probably gonna neglect to do that. Yeah. All right. Okay, so here's our different sections. Now we do have these caps over here. These are all gonna be like separated out. Yeah. It's your call if you want to kind of keep it that way or not. For my purposes, I'm like not gonna be doing too much up there. Our last thing that we're really gonna do, like as far as before we start getting into exporting this out into, so we can start working on this in Photoshop, is to make sure that all of these will fit in that square. Yeah, so right now I'm gonna kind of take the whole, I'm still in UV mode, and in UV editor I'm selecting all of these, kind of scaling this down. Yeah, so we're scaling this down so you can kind of see all of your textures um, will fit. I'm gonna move these round ones over to the side a bit just for now. Yeah, so we have a little bit more space. Yeah, so yeah, those two we can put over there. I'm probably gonna be moving these back in a bit anyway. Yeah, so get these guys, maybe move those up a bit. Okay, and then I'm gonna bring in our face textures. Remember, we always want to make sure that these are all viewable very clearly in our sorry, in, we want to make sure that these all fit in the UV map area. Okay. All right, so that looks pretty good. And then the last thing I'm gonna do is kind of separate these out. Yeah, so if you notice, this area down over here is separate from up here. So I'm gonna select these UVs, and I'm going to do all I need is to do is select a few of those UVs. Then I can go into select, convert selection, and then it's hard to see on the screen. I'm gonna scroll down to where it says let's see, 2 UV shell. Yeah, so 2 UV shell. So again, right click, select, convert selection to UV shell. And what that does is it selects all the UVs over here that are connected. Yeah, and then I can kind of slide these over to here and kind of space these out. So this way I kind of know, okay, this one is going to be the part that's connected to top of the head. Sorry, yeah, and then this part's going to be like with that cap. Yeah, so this part's for the cap. All right, and yeah, this is a pretty good layout. I can kind of roll with this already, so I'm not going to spend too much time in here. Last thing I'm going to take a look at is, yeah, okay, yeah, that should be good. All right, so now that we have our texture on here, obviously we're not going to leave our character looking like this. Yeah, we want to make sure that we're able to now start to customize. So I'm still in UV mode. Yes, I'm still in UV mode over here. In the UV editor, I'm going to do the following. Select, yes, I'm going to click and drag and select all of the UVs. Yeah, so we're going to select all of the UVs. And we're going to get ready to export this out. Yeah, so the next thing we're going to do after we select all of these is we're going to go into our edit. Oh, sorry, let me open up this window a little bit more. Sorry about that. Okay, we do want to make sure we have all of our menu items showing. Okay, we're then going to go into we're actually not going to edit, we're going to go into image, and then we're going to do what's called a UV snapshot. Yeah, and UV snapshots are great because we can bring them into Photoshop, Illustrator, whatever. Yeah, we can work on our textures there. So we're going to go image, UV snapshot. Okay, once you go to that, what you're then going to do is make sure that you are able to locate wherever your image is going. Yeah, it's going to default to this images out UV folder. You can drop it off in there if you want. For my purposes, I'm just going to end up putting this on the desktop. Yeah, so I'll drop this on the desktop over there. For your file name, if you can name it as follows, we're going to call this Lego head, and then we'll call this the OutUV. Yeah, so that's going to be the OutUV. As far as the file type, yeah, we can kind of, looks like we have to set that in this tool settings, but we'll go ahead and click on save on here. Okay, if you can check your image format, yeah, this is going to switch actually to a TIFF format. So TIFFs allow you to keep layers, which is really helpful for us when we're exporting. You can also export them out in different resolutions. Sorry. So we'll just keep it at 2048 by 2048. That's a nice, that should maintain a lot of nice detail. All right, and then once you're done with this, you can go ahead and apply and close. Okay, and that will have created a texture for you. If you're interested to see what the texture looks like, here it is. Interesting, yeah. All right, so that's our texture. Where our next step is going to be bringing in our texture into a graphics design editor. Okay, and one last thing for this, before we close out this video, forgot to mention, we do want to make sure that all of your mapping is saved. Yeah, so I get a little bit carried away sometimes. I'll do the UVs and then I'll export it out, and I'll forget to save the Maya file with my changes. And what'll happen then is if I reopen the file and I haven't saved the changes from before, and I apply a new texture that I made in like Photoshop or whatever, what'll then happen is like it'll still have the old map, and your texture will come out, or your design will come out like super weird, yeah, because again the mapping is would be back to its original. So let's make sure that we do save this, and this will be your last step for this video. We're gonna go file, make sure you do your save scene as, and yeah, please make sure you're saving that under your wherever you need to save it.